Welcome everyone to some more QoLs down the road during this pre-season of Midnight. We are starting number 1 with the Odyssey, with the journey of this godforsaken tool given to us by Blizzard, which is now on its 3rd different iteration after 2 sets of nerfs from Blizzard. What we're talking about, obviously, is the personal key to the Arcantina. This new toy for this new RP cafe kind of zone for you to go into. Now players immediately noticed that you have this toy on only a 90-second cooldown, which teleports you to this zone. Now what players realized quickly is that when they exited this Arcantina cafe, they would be back in Silvermoon every time, and the toy had a 90-second cooldown. So players made the quick connection that, okay, I can just use this as a Hearthstone, basically. Okay, sure, it's an extra loading screen. You have to load screen first to the Arcantina and then back to Silvermoon. It's 2 load screens instead of 1, but it works all the same. So Blizzard fixed this, right? Between the early access and the full release of the expansion, you had the fix that now the Arcantina, the toy, would bring you back to where you were. Sort of like a death gate of a death knight. So even if you were using the Arcantina to go to the cafe zone, once you exited the portal, you were just back to where you left. Now back then, players still found some pretty helpful uses to this. It would have still been, for example, the best way for you to be farming old raids and old dungeons. Why? Because the key to the Arcantina, once you teleport out of it, it can't bring you in the middle of whichever dungeon or raid you were. So if you got to the end of a certain raid and you wanted to reset it and go again, you could have used the key to the Arcantina from inside that old raid, exit the Arcantina, but since you can't be teleported back right where you were inside the raid, you would be teleported back at the entrance. And the toy only had a 90-second cooldown, so you could basically use it every time to reset any dungeon or raid you wanted and instantly be teleported back at the entrance of the zone. So it still had its uses. However, players started using this for a different reason, because with this logic of not being able to teleport into a dungeon but only at the entrance, players realized, hold on a second, what if I queue for a follower dungeon? What if I want to go, for example, to the Voidstorm? What if I want to go to maybe one of the weekly events, teleport there quickly or whatever? I can queue up for Nexus Point, get inside of the follower dungeon, use the key to the Arcantina, get out of the Arcantina through the portal, and be teleported in front of the Nexus Point dungeon. So now, what this did is that not only did you still have a way to teleport to Silvermoon, because you can still queue up for Murder Row, which brings you back into Silvermoon anyways, except now you have 7 more locations that you can go to, depending on all of the different dungeons in the different zones. That's where, once again, Blizzard gave up and said, okay, screw this. We wanted to let you go there whenever you wanted, freely into this zone, but since you keep finding ways to avoid the intended use and just use this toy for free teleports, we are putting a 15-minute cooldown on the toy. And now it's a default Silvermoon teleport. So if you use this, if you just use this as a teleport like we wanted to use it, like to teleport instantly to the Voidstorm by doing this trick, right? You instantly enter the Voidscar Arena dungeon. There's going to be a bunch of useless AIs right in front of you. Doesn't matter, teleport out. Go back to the Arcantina for your free teleport in front of the Voidscar Arena. But since this has been fixed, now you simply get brought back to Silvermoon. The difference though is that with this change, now this toy has a 15-minute cooldown. So sure, now it works as a Hearthstone. It brings you back to the same place you have your own Hearthstone, right? And it has a 15-minute cooldown, which is the same as the guild discounted cooldown of your Hearthstone. However, much of the other utility that we mentioned is now gone, or at least it is significantly nerfed. So the ability to get a free reset in front of a dungeon or in front of a raid, instead of having to walk back for all of the dungeons and raids, especially the older ones, the older expansions that don't have a way to go back out instantly. This was the best way because it was a toy on a 90-second cooldown, and now it's gone because now the cooldown is 15 minutes. And if you're farming an old raid or an old dungeon, presumably you would be faster than 15 minutes, which means this will be on cooldown when you actually want to use it. So unfortunately, as part of our first QoLs list of changes, this is not actually a QoL, it's just a nerf. It's just a list of abuse of clever game mechanics for players to get a free teleport, which gets to the point where Blizzard nerfs it enough that now it's still good because it's a free second Hearthstone, so it's still better than what we had before, a single Hearthstone. Now you have two of them, but it's not as powerful as it was before the two sets of nerfs that Blizzard gave this toy. Now the next QoL, talking about professions, which is something players might be starting to look into already in this early access, is the returning Wikora turned add-on, just like many other, which is the Muse profession skill points tracker, the one to essentially remind you of what you're still missing, and even if you're missing things, where to find any of these things, including the weekly profession points you can get from treasures, or if you're still missing, for example, some of the treasures to be found in the open world, you're gonna get directly told where to go and pick these up. It's useful, especially if you have multiple characters and you have to keep track of how many of these things have you done on each of the characters. This can better help you keep track of all of these things, right? Talking about professions, there is a cool thing that can happen thanks to all of this squishing around our characters. We just jumped down several hundred item levels, and therefore all the numbers on our gear are much smaller than before. This creates an interesting situation where if you don't want to spend too much money, too much gold, especially now when realistically most of your gear will become obsolete within a couple of weeks, even less than a couple of weeks, right? Even especially if you haven't gone into Mythic 0 yet, so you still have a whole bunch of, questing, world quest and whatever kind of gear. So, thinking about enchanting stuff worth dozens of thousands of gold, especially thanks to the early release prices of all of these things. If we go here, for example, and we check, let's say, some ring enchants right now, or even shoulder enchants or whatnot, we have a kind and cheap 40,000 gold to get you 65 more speed, for example. Now, one thing you can do is cheap out and still be able to use old expansion gems on your new gear. These ones are old, rank 3 of the old expansion. It's good because of the squish. This one at rank 3 gives you 10 of main stat and then 3 of the secondary, so 13 stats total. If you go to jewel crafting right now and you look at the generic blue gems you can craft, the rank 2, which is the one you will find the most, and even the cheapest one, which we're still talking about some 4,000 gold, gives you 10 and 4 versus 10 and 3. So especially on the poor side, if you want to save about 3 to 3,500 gold per gem at the cost of a single secondary stat, that is what you can do. You can just go to the auction house and look when you're looking for the gems that you want to craft, right? You do have, of course, the pricey gems of right now, but you will also be able to find the Dragonflight gems that are going to be much cheaper, right? Gems right now, if you're talking about the rank 3 ones, at least here in EU, are in the 10,000 gold range to get 12 and 5 secondary stats worth of gems on your gear, which, as we said, this is all likely trash gear you will be replacing quickly. So unless you have lots of gold to throw away, you don't mind spending some 50,000 gold to get some gems you might be replacing in about 10 days, and you want to go a little bit more on the cheaper end, all the expansion gems are still reasonably cheap. This one, for example, the Deadly Emerald right now is about 900 gold for the rank 3. Which is much less than the rank 2 gems of current expansion selling for 4,000 plus gold for just one more secondary stat. So it's still a bargain, especially for the poor guys. As a side note, talking about professions, the cheat is still here. So if you still want to make use of this in case you have forgotten this, number 1, or in case you weren't playing with enchanting, number 2, you can still have the workaround where with just 5 knowledge points, you get 20 for free. This is done very simply by unlocking transitories, tonics, and tools, spending only 5 of your knowledge points to be able to reach here. So you can unlock Mastering Mirages, and once you get to, I believe, a 55 skill, which is going to be enough to unlock all of this. And every single one of these, on top of being very, very cheap, it's like 15 gold per craft, every single one of these will count as a first craft. So it will give you 5 of the new, metal, the new resource you can get to spend on new recipes, and 1 more knowledge point. And there is 25 of these for you. So at the cost of 5 knowledge points, you can get 25 back for a total net profit of 20 that you can then go and spend in whichever actual specialization you were going for. This trick still exists even in Midnight. Now, talking about tricks, I am going to redirect you to yet another QoL tool you might be using from our dear Moleman, the master of delves, since, with this weekly reset, players are now able to push delves all the way up to level 7 to unlock rank 8 of the delve for when the season actually releases, which is when it can become somewhat useful to do delves early on, to get your coffer keys, get your first map, get a hero track piece from the delve, etc, etc. So here is the TLDR of the best versions of the delves, the strongest of the setups you can have for Valira, the strongest of the curios to pick, as well as in some cases for the best delves, even the better routes to be as quick as possible. This was all the collection of TLDRs we have for today. So this is what we have for today at the beginning of this weekend, this collection of more QoLs during this pre-season of Midnight. So for today, we are stopping here. We're thanking everyone, of course, who have been watching this video, together with everyone else who has been supporting by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, doesn't happen often that we have a video pushed out, between 1 to 3 a.m. Usually we're doing other things around this time.